Howdy everyone. It's been 3 weeks, 2 weeks for you, 3 weeks for me, 4 weeks.
3 weeks for both of no, 3 weeks for me, 4 weeks for us. I don't know. It's been a long ass time. I don't remember how to do this. Somebody help.
Yeah, I was like,
Send help.
what buttons do I press? I need adult supervision.
How does one comic book? How do we comic book?
Ugh. Well, it feels good to be here. I'm really happy I'm here. We've got books to talk about. We've got news to talk about. News,
Violence.
violence. We're gonna, if this is your first time joining in, um, we talk about comic books and comic book accessories, where we really just like trash talk creators and some of the new stuff going on, and sometimes the books. And
Sometimes the books ain't just vibing, and we gotta talk about it, and we gotta rip them to
yeah,
shreds and critique them, and
oh my goodness.
be a little truthful, even if the truth hurts.
But we're also going to talk to you about the books that we really, really loved. I don't,
Did
you
we
know,
really love any books? No, I'm just kidding.
I there was one that surprised the hell out of me, y'all. So get ready for that. Per usual, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start off saying hi to some people, some friends in the chat.
Also, I just have to say how glad I am that you're back, because I had to do this 2 weeks ago when I was hanging out with Josue. You had some issues with scheduling.
Yeah.
And I had to take the reins and say the howdies and hellos. And by golly, it is the most terrifying thing. Like, I'm so glad I can just sit back here and wave to the people and say hi, howdy, hello.
Hello.
So please take it away.
I missed it. I missed it a lot. I like saying hi to people in the chat, and I love, like, sometimes I feel bad because you'll be like, okay, like talking about a comic book, like going on like the comic book rant as you do, and then like I'm reading someone's comment in the chat, and so I have to simultaneously focus on like what you're saying and what they're saying, and I'm like
And
the
I say a
lady
lot
doing
of
the
things.
math equation. So anyways, hello to our friends who are in the live chat right now. Travis, TM Nerdy, thank you for being here. Niall, hello everyone, thank you for being here. Our friend Miss So, hello. Our friend Scott, hello. I'm making dinner and
What is for
listening.
dinner, pal?
Yeah.
Please.
Did you bring enough for the rest of the class? I want to know.
Right?
Also, how's your dog? How's Flower doing? Super Stick Boy, long time since I caught y'all live. It's been a while since we've caught you live, friend. Our friend Carrie, officially unofficial geek. Hi y'all, let's do the comic chit chats. Yeah. And Bizarro Fett, popping in to say howdy for a sec. Howdy for a sec. Our friend that comic girl.
It's
Sorry,
me.
I just had to make it awkward, a little bit awkward. This is like that moment when you're at a concert and people are chanting your name to get you to come out on stage. Is that what happens before? Are y'all like, Mars, Mars, Mars?
I hope not.
When we leave, are y'all like, encore? I'm going to imagine that now.
You could be like me, where I went to the bathroom during an encore and I didn't realize it, so then I flew out of the bathroom faster than you can say Buzz Lightyear. I don't know. It was a funny moment.
You know that, like, people are judging you, because I always judge those people. I'm like, don't leave yet. Like,
I
encore's
really
about
had
to
a
happen.
freaking pee, and I don't know concert etiquette. I
That's
had
okay.
never been to a small venue show before. Okay, cut me some slack.
It's okay. It's okay. Stads. I really apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Stads. Dances to intro music. I do that literally like every single time the intro music comes on. I do like a little like.
She does. Can
here.
confirm.
I forget that you can see me.
Can confirm.
I forget that you can see me. Comics by the Bay. Hey y'all. Nice to see ya. Thank you for being here. Okay, so Flower is great. Flower is Scott's dog, by the way, who's an absolute cutie. I'm making orange glazed meatballs. Yeah, I will take a to-go box. Thank you. Those sound good. Okay. Sounds delicious. You know what else sounds delicious? Violence, comic book news. I feel like that definitely is the violence section. What has been going on in comic book land?
We didn't discuss this backstage, so I'm kind of gonna throw a curveball at you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that's been on my mind recently. It's been on the internet a lot, and then there was something that came out today that made me think, we're one step away from that. So
I haven't paid attention to anything news related at all today. And also, really quick, it's because I'm hanging out with my mom who's in town. I don't know if my mom is watching. Mom, hello. Do you know where your children are?
Are the
It's
children safe?
5 o'clock at night. Do you know where your children are? If you're my mom, you do. You're watching me bullshit
Casually
about
Comics
comic
Live.
books. Let's embarrass me today in front of, or yeah, let me.
Perfect. Love
Okay,
it.
so what are we talking about today?
So, in the last couple weeks, AI artwork has kind of gone rampant, and there's been a lot of people out there making cute little icons, doing little things, paying $8, not for a check mark, but some for some weird AI generated artwork that potentially has some hot dog fingers. And it's kind of brought this discussion into the industry that, AI artwork has no place in creative outlets, whether it be for illustration, for game design, for comic books, you name it.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't have the spark that it, an actual trained, talented artist with a living, breathing brain, has. And the reason why I kind of bring this up is because a lot of artists, both in the comic book industry and just artists in general, have been very, very outspoken against AI artwork, and then of course been outspoken against those people that are using AI artwork, which is really, really terrible. But this morning, a guy posted about how in the span of a weekend he wrote and digitally illustrated using AI, of course. So at that point, did you really digitally illustrate a children's book? And so that makes him a published author. And it got me thinking, if a man does this with a children's book illustration, what's going to stop somebody from eventually doing this with a comic book? And we've already seen comic pages and comic panels that people have made, but what is literally to stop somebody from publishing a full-blown comic book and either A, pitching it to a big publisher, and I'm just waiting for that for one of the first publishers to do AI generated artwork because I'm sure it's going to happen, or B, just throwing that up on Amazon and calling it art. And I get it, art is subjective, but not when it's stolen and digitally created by a computer.
Yeah. So for me, not necessarily that I'm torn at all, because I'm going to go ahead and say this here. I'm very, very against.
I'm very anti-AI.
I'm anti-AI art. In one of the biggest reasons why is because these AI art generators have been fed images with tags on them. They put a whole bunch of tags, and it's like kind of like how like that Google, like, prove you're not a robot. Press all the squares that have cars. So these AI generators have been told, this is an image of this, this is an image of this. So the thing is that a lot of those AI generated programs that are being used artwork from living, breathing artists who, one, didn't give permission, and two, did not consent to their art
and
being
three,
put into those. Didn't get paid for their years of work, the years of work that they put into it, learning their craft and then doing their craft. So that is probably the biggest reason why I am against AI art, is because I as someone who's very particular about making sure that creators get the respect, get the paycheck that they deserve, it hurts. I don't necessarily know how I would feel if there was an AI art generator that was only using images where people got paid, public use images, things like that. I do want art, and making art, I think, should be accessible for some people who have accessibility needs. Maybe they have motor function issues. They have a vision that they would like to do. So maybe using AI art as a tool, or AI generated art as a tool, could be a way for them to make art. But I think that there's a lack of humanness behind it.
There is.
And a disregard for humanness.
You can definitely tell a piece of AI artwork compared to, a living, breathing artist piece of artwork, because, again, I hate to be this type of person, there's no soul to it.
And yeah, it's all very generic.
If you want a cheat code to tell if it's been made by an AI, just look at the hands. Are the hands normal? Are there more than 5 fingers? Do they look like sausages?
Yeah.
You
And I
know?
think I've heard, a lot of people have been using the AI art generators to be like, um, generate a picture of what I would look like as an astronaut, what I would look like as a cowboy, things like that. And I think there's a funness to it, but then I know every time it's like it breaks the heart of a living, breathing
Yeah.
artist who, yes, you could get a commission by them and you could be literally putting food on their plate. You could be helping pay their rent, but instead you're going to maybe buy an app, use it a couple times and then disregard it. It hurts.
I agree.
So
It's just weird. It leaves an icky taste in my mouth. And it's something I wanted to discuss because that is what we do here.
mm-hmm. And maybe to Highland G, I don't know if this was your intent behind this statement, but like, I've seen where you can use, it's not AI generated, but it's a program that you can use that can build models for you. So it can have someone pose a certain way and an artist will maybe go over and draw on top of it. So I think AI being used in that way still puts skill that someone put into it, still has a human element to it.
Mm-hmm.
I want creators to get paid. I think if Jack Kirby taught us anything, it was, kid, comics will break your heart, and comics should be paying their creators more money.
100%. Speaking of paying creators money, what a very nice segue.
Ooh, what a good segue.
What a good
yeah.
segue. It's like we planned that. And officially unofficial geek coming through with speaking of creators getting paid on time and fairly.
Thank you.
Some stuff has been coming out recently. And listen, I hate to be this person that says it's the same shit, but a different day, but it is the same shit, but a different publisher in this industry.
Yeah.
So Alex de Campi, who is a famous author, has done a bunch of comic books, did one of my personal favorites, which is the Grindhouse series from Dark Horse Comics. It's fantastic. Please read it. But Alex de Campi was bringing to light that there are a lot of creators out there, especially during the holiday season right now and with the year wrapping up. There's a lot of creators out there that are owed thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in unpaid work for their books that have been published.
That completely disregard the contract. So like a contract will say that they should be getting paid within a certain amount of time. And it's like way beyond that, because a lot of these companies aren't going to pay in advance. They only pay once the work is done, maybe once it's even published.
And it's met a certain goal. And not only that, but there was a couple instances in which they were naming that, books had been optioned to, director studios and to movie studios. These were books that had been optioned without not necessarily blessing, but without the consent. That's the word I'm looking for. Without the consent of the creators, which is kind of a big deal when it comes to creator-owned stuff. I mean, when we look at DC and Marvel, you kind of know anything that you create for them. Yeah, hopefully you'll get some credit, maybe some compensation, but ultimately these are characters that belong to the publishers respectively. Whereas
ultimately, sorry, just on that point, I've heard that several people, I think you can probably tell me the exact name of the person who said this, but they got paid more to appear in the movie than they did for like the comic book creation of like the source material that went into it. And a lot of that has to do with like the Screen Actors Guild and like all of that. But this is why we need some type of like guild for comic
book union.
Well, they can't have a union because that's, sorry,
true.
I know that's just silly, but they can't technically have a union, but they can have a guild. But anyways, go on.
But Alex de Campi, I mean, this isn't something unknown. I mean, we've heard a lot of things, especially recently within the past couple months. We've heard a lot of things where creators are coming out and speaking about those publishers and speaking about all the money that they've been owed for X, Y, and Z. But nobody has actually name dropped them in the way that Alex de Campi has. And Alex de Campi
brought receipts,
flat out looked at Scout Comics and Aftershock Comics, which, can I be honest? Can I pull this? If it has taken me over 2 years to try and get onto their goddamn press list, talking to the same guy with the same contact information,
this is
having his contact information, and yet I can't get a response out of him, I can't imagine what these goddamn creators are going through. I'm not even looking for money. I'm looking for press books
to talk about,
to help you. But yet you're not paying your creators.
It's because they know that we choose violence and we, I don't want to say we trash talk,
but we trash talk a lot of other publishers who have put us on their press list.
Maybe not
so evenly. But I just feel like I said, if it's not one publisher, it's another, because we went through a very similar situation with Volt Comics a couple years ago. Now Volt, their situation, at least I feel, and this could be me outsider looking in, not being that person getting paid, I kind of give them a little bit more leniency because A, they were a new publisher. B, it did kind of feel like they got in over their heads and didn't expect to take off the way that they did. But ultimately, they rectified those mistakes and they worked hard to make sure that their creators were compensated. We've even seen cutbacks in their publishing schedule so that way they can accommodate not only for, their creators, but I'm sure to accommodate payment for those creators as well, which I can appreciate. But then you've got big publishers, and I'd like to say that Aftershock is a very, very big publisher right now, not paying creators. And to this point, they still have not said anything.
Yeah, it really hurts because, like you said, I've heard it for a really long time. I heard it from a personal artist friend that, and I heard it from several people. This was years ago, that Zenescope was particularly bad at it, and I'm like, okay, they're a small one, not necessarily that should give them, I don't know, anything like really. Where is Zenescope now? Sorry.
You want to hear a funny story about Zenescope?
Yeah, is this going to be
never come up on this show?
Yeah, I do. Is it? This isn't. Okay, y'all, because sometimes these stories happen exclusively backstage. So hold on, let me go get
I
some
don't
popcorn.
think this has been a conversation we've had backstage. So previously, when I was, not dating and madly in love with my current partner, shout out to you. I know you're listening out there.
Thank you for watching the show.
Thank you for watching the show. I appreciate your support and love. Anyway, so I was on OkCupid, not wrong to be on a dating website, and I can't even remember his name, but he was one of the chief creators of Zenescope, and we matched, and I didn't realize who he was at the time, but we matched. And he had sent me a message, interested, because obviously I was very loud and proud about being a comic book girl. I had in my profile, I'm also known as that comic girl because, I'm very cute like that. And that's how I attract the people. And they reached out to me, and I looked at their profile. I saw their name. I Google checked it. I saw what publisher they worked for. And I immediately was like, yeah, I'm going to be honest. Y'all's comic books are trash and do not appeal to me in the slightest. It's going to be a hard pass for me. I'm sure you're really nice, but it's going to be a hard pass for me. And that is my story about Zenescope. Is the guy tried to make a connection happen, and I immediately said, you draw girls that look like bimbos that have no spines. No, thank you. Listen, I'm a thick woman. What would he want with me? I have a spine. I don't look like the girls on his comic books, so...
Okay. I didn't think that I could ever.
Never told you that story.
You have literally never told me that story, and it's amazing because I feel like if I knew that I could have.
The guy was relevant to the East Coast where I am. Like, nobody's out here. Why am I stuck with Zenescope?
Okay, but Mars, here's the thing. You just this is me. We all know that it was one needle on the haystack away from me slipping into my villain era. Every fucking day I wake up and I'm like, today's the day that I become the villain that I was always meant to be. And so I would 100% be on dating. I do not want to get on dating apps whatsoever. They scare the shit out of me. However, I would 100% try to exclusively match with people that I could terrorize.
To be fair, I also left in the middle of dinner once because a man said that his favorite comic book was The Killing Joke. So, and I will also say, on a more positive note, when it comes to my comic book relationship and my love life, I can honestly say that I had gotten more men and women to read Saga then
Yeah.
I had second dates. So a win is a win.
You know, that's how I would use this power.
That's how
Is
you
I'm gonna
use
go
that
ahead and
power.
I don't know. I'm gonna go just get on the dating. I'm gonna get on the apps, as the kids say,
That
and
being
I'm
said,
going to try to exclusively match with people who have trash comic book and pop culture opinions, and just terrorize you
yeah.
into. I'm gonna use my manic pixie dream girl powers for evil,
Is
for
it Manic
pure
Pixie or
fucking evil.
is it Big Titty Goth GF?
Me, I am small titty goth GF.
Okay.
I don't have the big. Sorry, everyone. I know. And here's another thing. I'm short. I'm short. I am small. I'm short. Small. Goth girlfriend, annoying manic pixie, dream nightmare girl.
Nightmare
Um,
Girl.
so I'm gonna get on the apps. I'm gonna terrorize people into reading more literally, it would be
That was
every
my
first
favorite.
date.
That was my favorite thing to do. Now imagine, because I know that you and your partner, you kind of have similar tastes, and I'm kind of jealous of your partner because just
Yeah.
look at the collection behind you that they have
Uh,
to choose
uh,
from.
okay,
Now,
someone needs to clip and record that, because that is a hot topic of
ooh,
point of contention, because it's such a small place.
this
There's
is true.
books and shit everywhere,
This
and
is
it's like, so. Anyways, yes,
Now,
that's
but
part of
back
it.
to my original focus. Now,
Go on.
imagine living with me. I am the little gremlin girl, which by the way, goblin mode, Webster's or Oxford Dictionary's word of
Word
the
of the
year, goblin mode, you guys are welcome. I'm pretty sure that I'm the cause of that because next year it's gonna be goldfish brain.
goldfish
But
brain.
now imagine living with me, little goopy goblin gremlin girl, forcing my partner to read every Tom, Dick, and Harry book that comes into my life and screaming, and yet they still haven't read them. You're out there. Please listen. I know you can. Please finish Moon Knight. It is your jam. Thank you. I love you.
This one goes out to a girl on the East Coast. Please finish Hawksbox.
Counterpoint. Partner said they would read Hawksbox and would give me cliff notes. Objection overruled, sustained. Okay. Anyway, so
Was
I
was
don't
there
know.
more news? I feel like there.
There,
Oh,
there was one
there
more.
was.
There was one more piece of news. I don't know what happened there. This is what happens when we're gone for 4 weeks and come back. It's literally a pile of goblins. Literally going goblin mode. So kind of a big thing that happened. And I'm kind of excited about it. So James Gunn, legacy known director for basically taking D-list level Guardians of the Galaxy and making them household icons.
No. I need to tell y'all, this topic comes up like maybe 3 or 4 times a
Okay,
year.
the
James
man who
Gunn,
gave us Scooby-Doo.
the man who gave us PG porn. The man who gave us PG porn. I need y'all,
What is
when the show is
PG
done,
porn?
it's PG porn. He did one where it was like Bang Bus, but it was like Helpful Bus. And instead of like collecting people on the streets to be like, come into the bus and we're going to bang you.
Is it literally called PG porn?
It is literally called PG porn. And James Gunn did it. And his brother, who is also in 1 or 2 of the PG porn, it's like a little bit. And so there's a line in the Helpful Bus where his brother, they pick up a lady from the streets. It's supposed to be that she's a sex worker, and instead of her engaging in sexual activities with them, they're Helpful Bus, and they drop her off at her nana's house. And then she's like, wait, what just happened? And so they like get her out of the car, and then James Gunn's brother looks at the camera and he's like, that bitch totally needed a ride. And so every time I see him in Guardians of the Galaxy, all I can think is, that bitch totally needed a ride. So when this delightful show, this family show, Casually Comics, is done, I need y'all to look up PG porn.
I just
on
did,
YouTube.
and I saw a penis, so thank you.
Oh, well, put safe mode on. Do not do what I just
What
said. Then do
What
not
is
go.
a safe mode? Anyway,
Anyways,
so apparently
James Gunn has a great legacy, and it is way
long
before.
story short, James Gunn is now taking over at DC Comics in terms of their movies and their whole TV universes and everything like that. And I gotta say, good. fucking
Yeah.
good because listen, DC Comics in the past 10 years that they have made movies with this DCEU, and it hasn't even been 10 years, but we're gonna say 10 years, has had one good movie. Okay, 1.5 good movies.
I liked the Harley Quinn movie, even if you didn't.
No, it was a bad movie, and I could tell you why. I have a whole video about it on my channel of why it was a bad movie. Go check
but
it out.
It was a good movie, and I can tell you why. It was a
It
good
was a
movie
good
because I
movie.
enjoyed it.
It was a good movie, but not a good DC movie. So we can agree to disagree on that. So, but the only good movie that DC Comics has had was literally the James Gunn movie called The Suicide Squad. So it kind of makes sense for this man to take over. I will also give Aquaman half points because I really enjoyed it. I just have a lot of problems with it, including Pitbull and the Africa remix, which should not be spoken about. But you know, I just my favorite part about this whole thing is watching the Snyder fanboys cry hysterically because it is funny. The Snyder fanboys, I'm going to say it right now, can get fucked and go touch grass because Zack Snyder does not read comics that are not written by Frank Miller, or Brian Azzarello or any
Jeff
of those
Johns
edgy boys. You know, so he doesn't really understand comic books and those characters. James Gunn, again, takes D-list characters and makes them into household names. So that is the only thing that I can really hope and expect to come out of the future DCEU is that we will get like a D-list hero. Like a movie like a Booster Gold movie, or dare I say a Fire and Ice confirmed lesbian movie. That would be pretty great. Mr. Gunn, you're listening. You're a great fan. I'm a great fan.
Thank you for watching the show.
Let's make it happen. Let's
talk about PG porn.
No, but seriously, I think that this is a really great step because, you know, DC, I love DC. I really do. That's my heart and home, and I only want to see them thrive. So I think that it has not been working for a very long time, and for them to admit finally that it has not been working rather than just attempting to solve the dumpster fire with little buckets of water here and there that ultimately are not working.
I think the reason, I mean, this is me, obviously, from an outsider perspective. I don't work for DC. I don't get to make executive decisions. DC, please hire me, because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put Rodney Barnes on writing Swamp Thing. Second thing I'm going to do is just, anyways. But I don't get to see these decisions being made, and what it looks like to me is that they were trying to copy Marvel in a way, but as to not be Marvel movies. They want these big blockbuster movies, but they're not doing it.
Marvel.
Well, I think that they're trying to, but I think that they're trying to be the darker, grittier, which I think has its place, right? Like darker, grittier has its place in that. However, I think that DCEU needs to be like the black label. We need a lot more Vertigo stories. Like we need, not that I want Sandman to be part of the big universe because I like it on Netflix, but yeah.
But I get it. But it's huge, and I'm excited to see where we can take things further.
Rant for a second. I'll be right back.
Why am I ranting?
I'm sure you probably trash talk James Gunn.
Trash talk James Gunn?
Oh no, not James Gunn. I'm so sorry. Trash talk Jeff Johns. There. Oh, okay, you got a topic. Okay, give me 3 seconds. I'll be right back.
What the hell? You want me to trash talk in 3 seconds? Man, I need a whole hour. Listen, I got so angry that I kind of just yeeted myself from the chat, so it's fine. So, Jeff Johns. I'll be honest, I used to be a really big fan of Jeff Johns. I used to think Jeff Johns was really cute, but now that I know he's kind of sexist and kind of racist and just all around bad.
This is all cuteness.
You know what? It makes sense though, because it was like early 20s Mars that was really attracted to Jeff Johns.
Okay, wow.
And that was his demographic. So it worked. I am the proof that
it like, notice me.
That being said, I will never read anything new by Jeff Johns ever again. I can't say I will never read anything Jeff Johns ever again because his Hawkman run is like my favorite, so that's my one
Yeah.
pass that I give myself, but everything else is gone. Anyway, thanks for coming back. I was scared.
You're welcome. See, I knew that you would say something just totally off the cuff,
You just
and you did.
didn't. I did. I admitted my attraction to Jeff Johns and his dad
Wow.
hat.
Wow. Next it's gonna be like you're gonna be like, yo, did you see that thirst trap of Brian Azzarello?
Nope. Never liked Brian
Ugh.
Azzarello. In fact, I always thought he was kind of a weirdo, and for the longest time, I thought he was the guy from Anthrax because they have the same beard.
Okay. Well, the reason why I needed to step away for just a moment is because this lovely lady right here, Sheena, for my birthday a couple weeks ago, um, wanted to send me books. And like, can I just say,
You're
like, y'all,
impossible to buy books for. I've been
I
thinking
am
about this for 4 weeks now, and Sheena beat me to
impossible.
it.
I will tell you, do not buy me books because I may already have it pre-ordered. I may have read it. Like y'all see the shelf behind me, there is another one of these here, and then double this in the rest of the apartment. So like, there's a lot of books, y'all. I read a lot.
It's a fire hazard.
It kind of is. But so Sheena sent me 2 manga, and I not necessarily that I have a lot of manga, but like nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So one of the books that she got that I have been eyeing that I didn't get is Night of the Living Cat. It kind of reminded me of the what was the one that you recommended recently?
The Walking Cat.
The Walking Cat. So it felt like that. So Sheena, thank you for this. And then this other one, it's I don't know if it's like a not safe for work one. The inside definitely is, but the cover, I don't know, maybe I'll just cover the butt up here. But sent me this one. I haven't been able to find this one. It's called, sorry, I'm showing a little butt. Oh no. The Birds of Shangri-La. And it just, this one was so beautiful. And I couldn't find it anywhere. So Sheena, thank you.
So that's the trick then, is we just buy you manga because you have
Yeah,
less manga.
I have,
Great. Got it. Perfect.
yeah. Please do not send me Blood on the Tracks. I read up to the 2nd volume and I'm like, I can't do this. This is way too stressful for me.
The best part.
What the fuck?
It gets worse.
What the fuck? This is a spoiler alert for Blood on the Tracks, but like literally, y'all, spoiler alert, Mom literally throws a kid off a cliff. And I haven't even gotten to the good part.
It gets worse.
Y'all.
If
I
this
can't
ever
with that
gets
book.
adapted, we're fucked.
Yeah, I can't, y'all. Well, anyways, Sheena, thank you. This was amazing. I love you so much. You're one of the most beautiful human beings on the fucking planet. And like every time you'll send me like a TikTok or a video or something, and that's like the best part of my day. You are literally so lovely. I love you so much. Thank you.
She's the best. Anyway, It's that point in the show now where we're supposed to talk about comic books.
We do have comics to talk about. I'm a little bit behind. So the comics from like 3-4 weeks ago, I don't even have opinions on those because my little baby brain.
I think it's just going to be a mess, and we're just going to talk about the comics that we read and that we loved and that maybe we hated.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. And I think that we should start off with the big 2 because we have literally nothing for them.
Yes, we were talking about this backstage. So for the last couple weeks, like I said, I know I'm behind on my books, but literally for the last couple of weeks, I've got, this one's just a facsimile reprint, but for DC, Justice League, America, issue number 28. It's got big old starfish boy on it.
Big old starfish.
I literally have like 2 books.
Me too.
And then 3 different covers for 1 book. That's
me too.
How DC deprived I am, which I'm okay with. Perfect. They were the same books. What did you think of, let's start off with the Nightwing Annual.
So the Nightwing Annual was a little weird because it had a story in it. Okay, so let's back it up. Annuals are obviously they come out every year. And they usually only come out for the big titles. So think Wonder Woman, Batman, Nightwing, you know, your heavy hitter ongoing books. And typically these are supposed to be self-centered, like one
Like
shots
self-contained.
almost, like
Mhm.
self-contained, oversized one shots. Last year's Nightwing annual was probably one of my favorite annuals ever. Sometimes I think annuals can be a little pointless, but last year we got this really cool team up between Nightwing and Red Hood, and it just kind of played with their dynamic, their resentment for one another, their jealousy for one another, their love for one another. And it was just really, really great and wholesome. This year's was a little bit different because it was split up into, was it 2 or 3 stories?
I thought it was 3, but it might just be
But
2.
the first one was like really overwhelming because we finally got a backstory to Heartless, which has basically been our antagonist since the Tom Taylor run started with, what was that, issue 75?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we got this big backstory, and I'm like, this is kind of important that it doesn't feel appropriate that it is thrown into an annual, because I feel like it's going to be something that comes up later on that is going to play importance.
I just imagine one of those caption boxes like, see,
Nightwing
Nightwing
annual #1. Not only that, but there's a lot of callbacks to previous issues, so I feel like if you read it, it gets kind of lost. That being said, there is a like 4-page like story in the middle of this annual that I think is perfect, and if that entire story was the whole annual, it would have been a perfect annual. And
Was it with Bitewing?
basically we get to see Nightwing's dog Bitewing, and like her dog perspective in saving the day. When Nightwing and Batgirl go out on a date, they get kidnapped by the Rose Gallery, and at first I'm like, this is really weird that they know who he is, but then it turns out it's from the dog's perspective. I think the whole issue just should have been about the dog.
I think I need an entire arc. I need an entire Bitewing needs their own series.
I agree. I concur.
For those of you who don't know, Bitewing is the 3-legged dog, star of the show.
I agree 100%. It needs its own series. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even remember what the third story was, so it must not have been important. Oh no, I do remember what the third story was. And I feel like a jerk because I did actually like it, and it was this cute little story between Jonathan Kal-El and Nightwing and their relationship together and the dynamic, because we've seen it go back and forth between these two characters for on and off for the past year, where Dick has really become a mentor to John. And it's just really cute and really wholesome, and it makes me conflicted because I loved the relationship between John and Damian as friends and them being best friends, but that relationship between Dick and John is at like a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know.
And especially because like this, like you said, it touches on Dick's relationship with Batman, and the way that Dick and John are like training, I guess, or like dealing with one another. And the way that Dick at the end says something like, hey, I learned it from Batman. And then you see this like tough moment between Batman and him, and that's how it, spoiler alert, that's how it ends. But it's like you can tell that because Dick was not shown that love and care by Batman,
then he wants to make sure that
he wants
John
to make
gets that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyways, yes, very good.
Very good. It's still solid. I think last year's was better. I think I'm just more confused of why was an important character's backstory thrown into this random issue that most people may not read.
Yeah.
That's all. But our only other DC book is the continuation. Oh, I'm sorry, you have another DC book. Never mind, continue.
It's okay. It is the Superman Kal-El Returns special. So there's 4 or 5 stories in here. It was aight.
It was aight.
These in the same way that like you can just kind of like take it or leave it. So there's a Superman what's his name? Olsen Jimmy Olsen kind of story. Anyways, it was all right, but these stories are meant to not have any type of like serious. They're a little bit more throwaway. But anyways, look at those two people hugging. It's adorable.
It is.
Okay. But the book that I loved a lot, issue number 7 of Poison Ivy.
This starts the second arc of a book that shouldn't have happened. So apparently this book was originally only supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries, but it is doing so well, both in sales and receptively from critics and fans alike.
Because I'm buying all the variant covers.
Because Jennifer is solely buying all the variant covers. That Joshua Middleton is just absolutely gorgeous, by the way. But because the series is doing so well, they decided to extend the series and give it multiple arcs, I guess. And I guess it's going to be kind of one of those, like, see how long we can keep the ball rolling, maybe. Which I would be totally okay with. So the start of the second arc, it's solid. I don't know if it's as good as the first arc because it does feel a lot of the same of what we've gotten previously, and that's not to say it's a bad thing because it's still very solid.
I feel like the main contributor to that is because when we first get introduced to Poison Ivy at the beginning of the series in issue 1, the stakes feel a lot higher. Like she's literally like has just like broken up with Harley and going on this quest, like basically this suicide mission is what she's going on. So it just feels like the stakes are so much higher in that beginning of that arc, where in this one, she just, I don't necessarily want to spoil it because it's a fantastic story. But it does feel similar to that journey where instead of going across country on like this suicide mission, she's trying to destroy a company from the inside, I guess. I'm still picking it up.
It's still solid.
Yeah.
But I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the stakes aren't as high because we don't have the breakup. And like I said, it's just, I don't want to say that it's stagnating because that sounds like it's a bad thing, but yeah, we said the same thing about Superman Son of Kal-El. We said the same thing about Nightwing, where it's like when you're just consistently giving us solid storytelling, it's going to be a lot harder for us to critique it than if it was, say, a bad book.
Yeah, agreed.
So that is literally it for DC Comics.
For like 3, I mean, there may have, I think that I bought Catwoman, haven't been loving it, haven't been reading it. Maybe Batgirls, once again, not loving it. I still
don't understand why you're reading that, but okay. Yeah. So Marvel doesn't have that much more, so we'll kind of blast through Marvel and then we'll talk about indie because I know that's the majority of what we have. Yeah. So for Marvel, I read a book and I don't know why I read the book. I'm going to be very honest. I was like, okay, it's a new number 1. The premise seems kind of cool. Let's give it a shot. So I read Dark Web number 1, which apparently is the start of a event crossover thing, which is even weirder because I hate events. I hate crossovers. I had no idea when I read this.
I'm also going to say I hate any crossover event or any event that has to do with Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I'm also not a fan of Spider-Man, so we're 3 for 3 right now.
If you do not, I will be honest, if you don't know much about Spider-Man, this will feel a little bit confusing because of
not Ben necessarily. Riley. Not necessarily.
If you think that this book is going to have is going to be heavy on, if you don't know the difference between Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Ben Riley, I think you'll be a little bit confused if you don't know that backstory.
But I think there's enough intro material that kind of throws everything to you and is like, okay, this is what's going on. So the premise of this book is Ben Riley, who is the clone of Spider-Man, and Madeline Pryor, who is the clone of Jean Grey.
AKA Marvel Girl.
AKA Marvel Girl. And they spell this out for you very clearly in the beginning of the book. These 2 clones basically decide they're going to team up and they're going to burn the world. And they're going to basically torture those that have made their lives so hard because You know, again, I don't know everything about the past for Ben Reilly or for even Madeline Pryor, but I can't imagine being a clone in the shadows of two greats like Jean Grey. I mean, I guess she's great, whatever.
Yeah.
But being in the shadows of two greats like Jean Grey and Spider-Man, respectively, is all that easy. Not only that, but the first couple pages of this issue in particular is honestly some of the most terrifying shit that I've seen in a big two comic book. So essentially, we're open to this scene where, you know, it's like a dream where Ben Reilly is with his girlfriend. He comes across Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Mary Jane shoves Ben Reilly's girlfriend into like a store where she's frozen like a mannequin. And Peter Parker proceeds to berate Ben Reilly and basically say what an awful waste of trash he is and how he should just give back everything. And it's literally panels of Peter Parker ripping off his hair. He's ripping off Ben Reilly's eyes, his lips. He goes so far as to even open up his skull and take out his brain and say, "No, I need that too." And I'm like, what the actual, why is this scary right now? Like, I'm actually terrified to go to sleep right now and I'm creeped out a little bit. And that's not something that I feel like we see a lot, especially from big two books. I can honestly not tell you the last time that a big two book creeped me out that way. So I was kind of interested until I got to the end where I got the real scare and was told that if I wanted to continue the story, I would have to read all of these tie-in crossover books. And that is where I draw the line.
Especially because you do actually have to get like a main, like not just a mainline title. Oh, where's the list? Like, so you've got to get Amazing Spider-Man, Dark Web X-Men, Mary Jane and Black Cat. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. And that's just in December.
And I don't have the time or the money for that, so it's not happening.
So someone needs to tell Mars, because I'm probably not going to, my attention span will not be able to get through all of those. What I was thinking about when I read this, because like you said, it's these two particular clones who were given a life and then all of a sudden it was taken away from them because the people that they were cloned from like either came back or either came and like reclaimed their own life and were made to be villains. The thing that I thought about in this, and maybe this can be a transition into the next book that we're about to talk about, is I wish, now looking back, I wish the variants could have been an event. Because we do, I know, but like, I think...
I wish the variants just didn't exist and Gail Simone could be put on a good book.
I think that Gail Simone doing an event would be incredible. I think that she is a mastermind. But when I think about the events in the variants, so this issue 5 is the last issue. Gail Simone and Phil Noto teaming up to write a Jessica Jones variant book where basically all of the clones from Jessica Jones clones, that rhymes. I didn't realize that until, I mean, I guess they're not clones, but anyways, different versions of Jessica Jones come in here, and there's a lot of talk about like who gets to deal with trauma. Like every version of her has dealt with trauma, and the one that we didn't think really got to deal with trauma, we find out that they did. That's what we find out in this issue.
We also get to find out that the villain's entire motive is, I would like to suck the soul out of people that don't love me and I want to find a husband.
Basically, hold up. It was all because of fucking Cyclops.
It was all because of Cyclops, and I think that's hilarious. And I feel like
simping over Cyclops.
I think that's funny though, and I think Gail Simone did that purposely because she also hates Cyclops.
You're right.
I think she did that on purpose. But
she's fucking Gail Simoning us again, and that's why this is brilliant.
This whole series just felt very rushed to me. It didn't make a lot of sense. It had a lot of really good ideas. I feel like I wanted the twist of, hey, this whole reason for me being a bad guy is because I would like to find love. I wish we could have found that out in issue 3 so we could have spent a little bit more time with it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like overall it was very, Jessica Jones just is not the character to do a multiverse with. She's not interesting enough in the terms of the creativity you can get with her. She's had 2 alter egos. She's been Jessica Jones and she's been Jewel. Mm-hmm. She's a character that really does not have powers. and she's a very, I hate to say this, generic looking character. That
I
being
don't think
said,
she's generic, but I do. To me, like she wears plain clothes is her
she wears
thing.
plain
So
clothes. She's very generic.
get a sexy costume, duh.
I don't know. I wanted to like this more, and I feel like I'm gonna be honest. I agree with officially unofficial geeks. There was no resolution with the whole Kilgrave thing, and that was a huge part in the beginning of the book. Was this hold that Kilgrave has? It's the anniversary. Kilgrave is making people kill themselves for the sake of, you know, they're making sure Jessica Jones is aware that he's still around, and that's terrifying. And I feel like the Kilgrave that we saw in the show Jessica Jones is so much more terrifying than the one that we've seen in the comics previously with Brian Michael Bendis. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to see a creative team tackle that, because we've seen a lot of comic books be influenced by their TV or movie counterparts. Jessica Jones is that one book that we need to literally rip straight from its MCU counterpart or Netflix counterpart, whatever we want to call it. But it needs to be that one that rips from its adaptation to strengthen it in the comic book universe. Because to be honest, she was not that, I hate to say it, but she was not that interesting of a character before Netflix got a hold of her. I'm sorry, Scott. And that being said, she's one of my favorite characters, but she's one of my favorite characters because of the show.
Yeah, I can definitely see that sentiment, because it going back and reading Alias after watching the Netflix show,
I hated it.
You can see, well, I wouldn't say I hated it, but I feel like I can actually hear the character's voice a little bit more. I see, is it Krysten Ritter? I can see Krysten Ritter like in her mannerisms when I read the book. So I do like that element to it. I wouldn't necessarily say that Jessica Jones isn't a character worthy of getting the whole multiverse, but I would love to see maybe even Scarlet Witch getting that, even though we not necessarily got it in Trial of Magneto. But could you imagine like what that would look like? Okay, now I've got like the ball is rolling.
The ball is rolling. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying not to cry because it could get really emotional.
See, yes, this is why we need to be writing comics, because I know we talked about like getting a like group of witches together and doing a Marvel thing with that.
And then we got Midnight Suns, and then Mars was preaching about how we needed a Wolverine family book, and then guess what? And it's a book that came out this week, so we're gonna segue into it. We got a fucking Wolverine family book called The Family Snicked. It's only available on Marvel Unlimited though. But yeah, this is a book that is literally my dream come true. It follows Gabby, it follows Jonathan the Wolverine, it follows Daken, it follows Laura, it follows Logan. And it's them literally going on a family road trip because Gabby wants bonding time. And I'm like, this is literally what I was asking for. And I literally, y'all have proof. We have recorded proof. Mars has been asking for the Wolverine family book for over a year now, and we got it. You're welcome.
Yeah. I literally want them. If I can just, Marvel, we know you're listening. We know you're taking your ideas from us. It's okay. I just need to see them in like a fucking station wagon at some point. Like, and I literally need Logan. I need like old man Logan driving and like kids in the back just arguing and saying dumb shit. And then him just being like, I'll turn this car around, bub. Something like that.
It'd
like,
be great. It'd be great. Just give me more of that. Yeah. I have one other Marvel book. I don't know how many you have. It might be the same Marvel book. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows?
I have one. I do have one.
What do you have?
I have Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Oh, that is not the book that I have. So please tell me all about it.
This one is really cute. This one feels a little bit different than her other books. If you've read any of those, like she's a super smart scientist. I don't know if she is the smartest character in the Marvel universe or like one of them. She's really adorable. I love her relationship with Devil Dinosaur. I love the relationship because this whole Moon Girl went on this thing where Devil Dinosaur was lost. So she had to go find him, and she was like teaming up. And so coming off of that series and into this, I think is really, really cute. This one feels like a much appropriate for much younger Moon Girl. So this would be for that audience that's like maybe 10 to 11 years old, maybe a little bit older. But she joins a roller derby team, and I just think that's so adorable. It is, like I said, a little bit more younger leaning, but it was really cute. And I think even if you're an adult like me and you just need like a palate cleanser,
that would be the one to read.
Yep. And I also got the Peach Momoko cover.
Of course.
She's crying. Okay. It was good to see sometimes in the Moon Girl books, because Moon Girl is so smart, like it literally introduces her that she's just like tired of everyone, of the people around her, treating her like a child, treating her like she's not smart. It was really refreshing to see her just happy and like a kid in this instead of the weight of the world on her shoulders.
Makes sense.
So anyways, that was Moon Girl. Tell me about the Marvel book that you've read.
So the Marvel book that I read was Exterminators 3. And I'll be honest, I don't know how I feel about it.
I think I missed out on that one, or I may have it somewhere in the stack, but
I really like this series. I think that it brings something new and different to the table. But in the way that I have previously critiqued writers for using just like dumb fart jokes and like, you know, like 12-year-old boy humor, I can't help but feel like Exterminators uses like dumb Gen Z humor to an extreme. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Gen Z humor.
Yeah.
I love the dumb references from TikTok. I love just the dumb slang and lingo that Gen Z and even millennials use that comes from Exterminators. But when it feels like it's literally, I don't even want to say every page, when it's like every panel and all of the characters start to have the same jokes, the humor blends together rather than one character having this sense of humor, you know, another character having that sense of humor. Because no offense, there is no way that Boom Boom and Laura Kinney have the same personality and humor.
Yeah.
And I feel like with this book, we have a lot of different characters because it's Jubilee, it's Dazzler, it's Boom Boom, it's Laura Kinney. And I feel like all four of these girls who are wildly different in personality are all starting to feel like the same.
Ooh.
But I'm conflicted because at the end of the day, part of me still really, really enjoys it because it is something different and something new from Marvel. And I kind of see where they're going and I like that vibe. So I would love to see more books like this on the market. But I feel like this one in particular, it's kind of feeling very, we had a bunch of crowns on the table and they melted and now all the colors are blending together and it's just like this messy, ugly brown color. That's how this book is starting to feel, where I want to enjoy it, but it's just kind of goopy right now.
I also, like, now that you say that, I almost wish that they had aged Jubilee a little bit older than Laura Kinney and Boom Boom. Like, Boom Boom obviously is the youngest of the three, but their age difference obviously would be very, I don't know. But I understand how you feel about that.
It's just, I want more from it.
I think it needs to be, at first it felt like it was going to be scary, right? Like I thought it would, not necessarily more horror, but it leaned into the horror, and I didn't expect that with the first issue. It's almost like I want it to be darker and grittier a little bit, but still fun.
It just, I need it to be more fun.
Yeah. JP agrees here. Laura and Boom Boom are very, very different.
I mean,
for sure.
There's a point, and I understand that this book was described as being Grindhouse, which I could see the Grindhouse, but not with this cast. If we did like a Grindhouse book with like Magic and Laura Kinney, and we'll throw somebody else in there, not Boom Boom, because there's a point, I'm gonna be honest, so I don't even know what Boom Boom's powers are. I assume she goes boom.
She goes boom.
There's a point where she literally whips out her tits in a very Robbie Rodriguez Grindhouse style move, where she pulls her titties out of her dress and goes boom, and it blows up a hole in the wall. And I'm like, I kind of see where you're coming from, but it does not really fit the tone of this book or this character.
To me, like, that sounds like I know I said earlier, I love fart jokes. I love tit jokes almost equally. And so, like, that just sounds like a really funny joke and a really funny moment. And I could see someone like
but I
Boom
didn't
Boom doing that.
laugh.
Yeah, but at one point it feels like it's, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about our indies, but it reminds me of something that Tim Seeley would write. It sounds like they're making it, I don't know. Does that make sense?
I do.
Okay.
It does. But that's pretty much everything that we have for DC and Marvel. There wasn't a lot, despite it being 3 weeks. I'm afraid to see what it would have looked like with just 1 week.
God.
We probably would have forced ourselves to read a lot more things that we didn't want to read for the sake of them being number ones.
Yeah.
But
and sorry, really quick, to our friend Josue, who's currently at Books with Pictures. Get back to work. Well, you guys just closed, so y'all are good. But I did not read Immortal X-Men. I think that book was last week or the week before. I did, however, buy the Quiet Council variant with my.
They're so pretty. I love them so much.
I'm gonna pull it up right here because it's so beautiful, and I just want to be I just want to be the third in the Mystique Destiny thruple. Like, look at how beautiful that is.
I agree. I concur. I call fourth.
Okay, done. But that's it. Maximum.
That's it.
I'm just kidding. The more the merrier. Is that right? Really quick. I want to do a thing before we move on to indie books.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because I was sent a very nice package by Black Box Comics, and they sell and are publishing indie comic books. So they were very, very nice to send me a box. I don't know what's in it. I haven't opened it up. I did go ahead and just so you don't have to watch me struggle, but you can see me open up this box. So these, one of them got stuck on the tape, but I got Black Box Comics pens. So if you hear me during the show, can you hear that?
Yes, it's ASMR.
I'm gonna be a pen clicker.
Oh no.
Okay, so that was it. Just kidding. Wouldn't that be funny if they just sent me this whole package and it was just clicky pens?
Just pens.
Pens. Okay, so they sent me a couple other things, so I'll go ahead and reveal what they sent. I'm really excited. Okay, so first thing here, got a copy of Dr. Wilder, issue number 5 by Childs, Hawkins, Giampa, and Rossi, and it looks like they also sent me 4321. Very cool. So they publish these comic books, so you can find them on their websites. It's even got the little logo here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Very, very cool. Got a couple other things. There's 3 more things. And maybe it's more than that. Okay. They also sent another series. They sent 1 through 5. Jin Hunter by Sandlin and Constantino.
Ooh.
So that looks cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'll be honest, I don't know too much about these series. So I wish I could say more, but I don't know too much. So I'm going to have to read these, find out next week on Casually Comics about Jin Hunter and Dr. Wilder. Thank you, Black Box Comics.
Fun stuff.
I really appreciate that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get to some other indie comic books that we got these last couple
So
weeks.
many indie books. It's not even funny. Like, I wanted to vomit over how many books that we had to read. This is what happens when we take off.
Yeah, that's why we haven't been feeling good, because it's so many books.
It's too many books. So let's talk about some books. So, do we get violent right off the bat? Do we get happy right off the bat?
I don't know.
Do we get kind of disturbed right off the bat?
Do you want to go by publisher, or do you feel like
Girl, I don't have that shit organized.
I don't either. Sorry.
All right, I'm gonna pick a book at random. All right, we're gonna talk about Lovesick because this is a book that's been on my mind.
This is actually so. This is us choosing violence.
This is us choosing violence, but not really, but also yes, violence. So this is Lovesick number 2, published by Luana Vecchio, who previously did the art for Bolero, which was our favorite comic this year. This is a book. This is a very fucked up book.
Like, this is a very violent book.
This is not a book for children.
No, and for those of you who don't know, so this is issue 2 that came out this week. Issue 1 came out last month, and the premise of it is there's this woman named Domino. She is a sex worker, dominatrix, but has a cult following of people who want her. They are like,
she has a red room. They want her to kill them.
Yeah, they worship her so much, and they see themselves as so lowly, I guess, that they want to sacrifice themselves to her. And so there's a waiting list to get on to be murdered by her, and that's literally all they want, is just to be disgusting, filthy little piggies.
It is very, very violent, very accurate, I can't say accurate. So I recently learned, all right, fun fact time. So I recently learned that red rooms are apparently a very real thing. So with me asking if red rooms are a real thing, and then learning what red rooms are, and learning some of the associated terminology with those red rooms, it got me thinking about the book and being like, damn, is this realistic? Does this happen? Do these things happen? What is going on? And then it's one thing after another, and it's I don't know if this is supposed to be, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I don't know if this book is supposed to be an intentionally horror book. Is this supposed to be a sexy, let me unleash my deepest, darkest desires book? What is this book supposed to be? And I think that's kind of what scares me the most, but at the same time, I'm going to keep reading it because it is gorgeous, because it is so bizarre and strange, and it sucks me in.
Yeah, even though, if there's it doesn't have the same nuances that books like Safe Sex or even Hit Me that deal with that deal with sex work, that deal with specifically fetish sex work and niche things like that. And I think the reason why the horror element is pumped up is because Domino is obviously our antagonist in this book, and you're supposed to see things from her point of view. And the things that she's doing to the people, she's obviously doing with their consent, but she's torturing them and murdering them with their consent. And I think the things that she's doing to them are things that we are used to seeing in horror movies and played out in a very horrific way, as opposed to these people love her,
like a power fantasy type thing.
Yeah. So I would say the things that you see happening in this are things that you're like, wow, I feel personally traumatized by the things going on. Yeah,
I don't know. I like it. It's a good book, but I also say read it carefully, because it can be very triggering. It can be very hard to read.
It may also give you a boner.
There is also that.
Sorry. There's also anyways.
That.
It may awaken something in y'all.
It may awaken something.
But I do, like you said, I do want to trigger warning. This entire book is a trigger warning, and it also read with caution if you even choose to read it at all.
And don't read it in public.
Yeah. Unless, there's just weird bitches like me walking around.
True.
And you're trying to get your small and or big titty goth girlfriend.
True.
Read this in public.
Very, very, very true. So there was another book kind of weird, kind of like Lovesick, that came out. I believe it was last week. And that's Plush #1 from Image Comics. Mm-hmm. About sexy puppets that kill and eat people, and then Also non-consensual marriage and possible just non-con actions in general against men that made me uncomfortable.
And this book in the beginning also features, because they end up going to like a furry convention.
They do, and it's
I felt like it, not necessarily, I do not want to kink shame anyone ever, but it felt like they were making fun of furries.
It seemed like they were kink shaming the furries, 100%.
They were kink shaming the furries, and this is a no kink shame zone.
But this is done by Doug Wagner, who is a very weird dude. He previously did books like Vinyl.
Plastic.
And he did Plastic, which if you've never read Plastic before, it's essentially a story about this psycho serial killer who falls in love with a sex doll and like literally like falls in love with her. Like think of the movie Her, but worse. Falls in love with a sex doll and proceeds to kill people because she gets kidnapped for some reason. And this book felt just as weird and strange and uncomfortable, but not as interesting as Plastic. I really didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And I didn't like this book. I really did not like this book at all.
I read Plastic as the trade. So it was just the whole thing. And I wanted to like it because it's weird. And I thought it was going to be more of a love. It just wasn't. And I the reason why I think that I also didn't like this book, like I said, because it feels like he uses these things that are weird, these weird scenarios, falling in love with a like plastic sex doll and driving her around the country and serial killing people. Like it felt like he was making fun of a person like that. And then in this one, in Vinyl, I didn't get it. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
In this one, I'm also feeling the same way. Like it just feels like Doug Wagner is using these weird scenarios and then just making
exploiting
fun of
them. He's exploiting them.
Yeah. So not to say that it's not interesting, not to say that it wouldn't, I don't know, that it's not for someone out there. It's not for me. Maybe I'll read it in a trade if I can find it like super cheap or something. But anyways,
it wasn't for me.
Wasn't for me.
A lot of people are hyping up this book, and I'm very confused as to why. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. We saw the finale of a couple Image series this week. So, real quick, Golden Rage number 5. It's the end of that series. Again, didn't love it a whole lot, and that's kind of depressing because when that first issue came out, I was like, okay, this is definitely going to be one of my books of the year. Like,
it was literally described.
Love this.
It was literally described as like Golden Girls meets like Fight Club or Battle Royale, and it didn't deliver on that.
It didn't deliver on that at all, but it gave us this idea of, you know, old women and women who can no longer conceive, you know, and their worth to society and what happens to them when they're no longer worthy and how do they live. And there was so much room to have these deep-rooted conversations about womanhood and what it means to be a woman and the importance of women to society on like a political like level. Like think something like Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm. In a way that hits different than just Bitch Planet, because in Bitch Planet it's like indiscriminate, like of all age groups, right?
But it could have been another Bitch Planet. Very well could have been the new generation, the 2010s version of, or 2020s version of Bitch Planet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that. It fell flat on every single surface and level of conversation. There were so many layers that could have been had here, and we didn't have that. I was even expecting it to have conversations in the same way, and this is the second time we've brought up this book tonight, but as FSFX, where we have those conversations, you know, and women's role in society. But Golden Rage kind of just ends with, okay, we're on an island, we're getting ready for war. War from who? Who's attacking you?
Because it's literally two factions of the same island.
But they all came together at the end to fight against who knows who. Because the entire time this book is like, okay, there's two different groups of women, they're split apart. Okay, the groups of women are brought together. Now we're gonna, it literally ends with, now we're gonna fight against a greater enemy. And we know in the back of our head who the greater enemy is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's never any sort of sense of threat to the women on the island. It's just kind of like, okay, you're here, you're abandoned. What happens to the world? What does the world look like off of the island? What does the world look like should these women happen to get off of the island and start a rebellion off of the island, which is maybe what they should have done? Why are you waiting for the rebellion to come to you? That's not how rebellions work. Exactly. Rebellions work with you striking first.
And I mean, I do kind of get that, because when you are in a system of oppression, the system of oppression doesn't give you the tools that, oh my God, I feel, is it Audre Lorde? The master's tools will not unbuild the master's house. Anyways, so I don't think that, like, when the system of oppression builds the system and makes you weak, it's really hard to rebel against the system, because you don't have the tools to dismantle it. So I understand, they get sent to the island and maybe they found their power on the island, but I wish that was issue 1. I wish it was literally issue 1, where we see the character gone to the island, and then maybe they already had an idea, like they were going to escape the island in issue 1, instead of this happening at the end, and now it goes nowhere, right?
Yeah, it goes nowhere. And it's disappointing, and it's sad, because there's a lot of potential for this book, but unfortunately it's going to the bottom of the pile in terms of my favorites of this year. Sorry, Golden Rage.
It's not going to the bottom.
You've disappointed me.
But I want to read it over again in one thing. It also keeps referring to this as volume 1. So I'm curious if we will get a volume 2. We'll see.
And you've already soured my expectations.
Oh.
But there was a book that finished this week that did not sour my expectations. And in fact, it blew away my expectations. And I'm very mad. I'm very mad that a dumb book about wrestling made me cry the way that it did. So Daniel Warren Johnson, at this point in time, this man can literally be given a box of rocks and make an emotional, heartfelt story. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like,
now coming from Daniel Warren Johnson, box of rocks.
Daniel Warren Johnson has taken DC. He has taken Marvel. He has taken indie comics and given us storytelling in a way that we have not seen storytelling. And at this point, I just need one of the publishers, if not all of the publishers, to roll up, be like, here's a bag of money, do something.
Yep. You and I, so for those of you who haven't been following along, this is issue 7 of Do a Powerbomb by Daniel Warren Johnson. And
a book literally about wrestling in the hopes of getting your mom back.
Yeah, so the main character, Lorna, you find out that she lost her mom in her mom was a wrestler, and lost her to wrestling when she was much younger. And she goes into a wrestling competition in order to get her mom back.
And teaming up with her dad while at it.
Yeah.
And in this issue, we found out in the last issue that the final battle would be against God, which I find hilarious. Go on, punch God in the face. That's funny to me. What's even funnier is, even though they don't win against God, they do manage to make God bleed. And God is like, huh, you made me bleed. So while I can't, or maybe I'm not gonna. I don't know which it is. I feel like it's a I'm not gonna, but he claims it's a I can't. So he's like, well, I can't give you your mom back. I am going to unlock this memory for you. And it's essentially this memory that Lorna had with her mother when she was very young, in terms of, what happens if one day you're no longer here and I lose you. And her mom responds with, well, it doesn't matter where I am, because no matter where I am, I will always be watching over you. And the final panel pans to Lorna's mom, literally sitting in the audience in the afterlife, watching her daughter and her husband, fight. And I'm not gonna try to be like, okay, I've lost a parent. I know what that feels like to lose a parent. I don't even know what it feels like to lose somebody objectively close to me. Listen, I'm going to be honest. The closest person I've lost to in my life is like a great aunt, okay? And I'm thankful and lucky for that. But this book made the feeling of loss so real and so tangible to me that it felt like I've lost somebody before and I'm able to connect with that feeling of loss, even though I've never, ever experienced that feeling of loss. And it's just insane to me because, again, Daniel Warren Johnson manages to do this with his books. I mean, he took a Wonder Woman book that was so, he threw her into the apocalypse and it was so emotional and so real, and I could feel those emotions. He took a character like Beta fucking Ray Bill, who, I'm going to be honest with you, I literally only read that book because I was told, hey, the monster is going to fuck Lady Sif. Read this book. That is the whole point. That is the whole point of this book, is he wants to fuck Lady Sif. So I read the book, but yet I felt emotions and I felt sad and happy and I could relate to it. But while I do want to fuck Lady Sif, I am not a monster, but I could still relate to it. And then with this dumb wrestling book, I'm able to relate to it. So Daniel Warren Johnson, it's not make it make sense, but make it make sense.
Yeah. This book ended up, like, I picked it up thinking, how am I, like, I know it's Daniel Warren Johnson, like, Beta Ray Bill was one of my favorite books of last year. How are you making a book about wrestling, which I know nothing about, except apparently that I have a thing for Rhea Ripley, who apparently everyone does, because like she's smoking hot, and I just want her to crush me. But that's all I know about wrestling. But I also know that, like, with wrestling and this like extreme wrestling theater, like, we know that it's not real, that a lot of it is scripted. And one of the things that I really love about this conversation that Lorna has with her mother, and she's like, having that conversation of, will you always be here, talking to her mom about like what happens when you're not here. And like her mom says, we know that the ending is predetermined. Basically, we know that we're going to die, but that doesn't make like the story any less interesting. That doesn't make oh my goodness, like it's still a lot about what does she say, it's all a big mystery. Anyways, she says, we all know where we're going in the end. Eventually we die, our outcome is always known. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think it's about the end, it's about the story. And like, this book literally had me fucking just that line right there just fucking murdered me.
Yeah. It was good.
Slow
it was
clap.
A good book.
Slow clap.
Very good book. Definitely the contender of one of the best of the year.
Yeah, which is funny because a lot of the books, I didn't think it was going to happen, but a lot of the books this year are Image.
Yeah. They redeemed themselves after last year.
Whew. But maybe they didn't, because there were a couple of other Image books that came out this week that I just wasn't in love with. Okay. There was one that you really did not like. And I'm sorry.
I feel like I can't even judge this book because, so this is All Against All. I'm not even going to begin to tell you what it's about because I don't know. There was a bear at the beginning and the bear was pretty cool. It has spaceships. It was cool in space. And I'm going to be honest, I got halfway through this book before I closed it because I was like, you know what? My little Christmas treat to myself is I'm not going to force myself to read something that I have no attachment to. And I'm going to be honest, I love bad books because I like being able to tear apart a bad book. When your book is so boring that I can't even, A, I don't know what's happening, B, it's so boring that I really don't have anything to critique other than I'm bored, I'm not going to finish it. That's what we call a bad book. That is just not even worth my time. So that's all I have to say about that book.
I think the reason for me also was that the characters' designs looked so similar, and they did the thing where like the only differentiation between them is like here's the yellow one, here's the blue one, here's the pink
What are
one.
they, fucking Power Rangers?
And yeah, and like none of the voices sounded like I didn't feel any of the characters, so it was hard for me to be like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I like this character. I connect with this character. So I didn't have that element, and also not really having a clue what was going on kind of sucked. The artwork is still beautiful, but I wish that we were just, it's 2022. Can we differentiate characters other than just being like, this is the primary color that they are?
Yeah, it was boring. I didn't like it. But there was another book that you read this week that I did not read because I saw who's attached to it. And I'm surprised that you read it because of who's attached to it, because you keep promising that you're done reading books by that person.
And I'm probably gonna say it again, and I'm gonna do it. This is me drinking the dumb bitch juice, I guess. So Hexware is written by Tim Seeley, and you and I were talking a little bit about this backstage, and the same way that we were talking about was it Exterminators, and we were talking about how like all the characters seem to mesh. It feels like every single time Tim Seeley comes out with a character, he almost always writes young female characters, which kind of has groomer vibes to it, but it's like they always sound the same.
It's always young, female, edgy, kind of goth GF feeling. Basically, TLDR, every single character that Tim Seeley has created has been a copy of Hack and Slash.
Exactly, which I liked that series a lot when it first came out, and I remember like liking the character, hearing her voice, but now I'm just like I want Tim Seeley to grow as a writer and maybe write something outside of that. It feels like that's his comfort zone. And I need something out of that comfort zone. Someone else may read this book who maybe didn't read Hack Slash.
So is Tim Seeley just the Cullen Bunn of edgy female characters?
I was going to say that. And I love the way that she's designed too, which like she's like a witch doing technology witchcraft. And I feel like I should 100% be in love with this book, and I'm not. And I want to say it's because I just feel like Tim Seeley writes this character because he secretly wants to fuck the character, not
Oof.
because he's actually interested in the character. Like, I would read this book. I would even read this book if it was fucking Mirka Andolfo. I would read this book. But with Tim Seeley, I'm not feeling it. Tim Seeley, no feely.
Big oof.
Sorry. Anyways, the cover looks really cool. Maybe it's out there for someone, but it ain't for me.
It ain't for me.
There's one other Image book that I have here. I think that's it for Image. And that is, I'm really surprised I picked this one up, but it was Radiant Pink, which is a spin-off of the Radiant Black series that came out by Kyle Higgins, where he's doing this. He's basically doing Power Rangers, but for Image Comics. Once again, there's a blue one, there's a pink one, there's a red one. So you know the pink one is obviously gendered female. Radiant Black, the jokes in it and the humor in it is really, really good. And I feel like it has a little bit of like millennial Gen Z humor, not pumped up as much as Exterminators. But I felt like Radiant Pink definitely did the thing where it's like, look at me, I'm a streamer. Let me talk about doing the streams on them internets. And it just fell flat.
It's so relatable.
It's so relatable to a certain niche type of people or age group. And
but to the two people that stream every week, it was not relatable.
It wasn't relatable because I am a human being outside of this, and it doesn't feel like they give her a personality or agency outside of make her a Twitch streamer and also make her a superhero that does good. Give her a personality outside of that, and pink it down. So we're going to make it cute and bubbly and fun because it's for girls, because girls can't handle stuff that isn't pink and bubbly and fun.
I like pink and bubbly and fun.
I do too, but I also need to be a depressed piece of shit sometimes.
So two quick really books that I'll run through. Briar number 2 from Boom. First off, there was a month-long gap between first issue and second issue. And we've talked about this before. I've had my complaints when books do this. It is a very, very bold move for you to have a month-long gap between your first issue and your second issue as an indie comic.
Especially an indie comic that the first issue, I could not stop hearing about the first issue of this one and when it came out.
But here's the thing. As someone who has worked in a comic book shop, as somebody who knows the ins and outs of the comic book industry, the first month and the second month are the most important moments of your book because readership can drop by almost 65% between the first and second issue. If you think that people, because here's the thing, not everybody's going to put something on a pull list, but they may think, okay, well, I'm in the comic book shop and I liked issue 1 and here's issue 2. Let me pick up issue 2. If you think these casual people without pull lists who just casually liked your book and thinks, I liked issue 1, I'm going to pick up issue 2, is going to pick up issue 2 after a month-long gap, you're sadly mistaken, because do you know how many books come out in the span of a month or even 2 months?
How many indie number 1s came out this past week alone? There was probably a good almost 10 issue number 1s that came out for indies. So I think that Briar number 1 was so strong. By the time I got to reading this, I forgot
what
it.
happened.
And I was thinking of maybe several other books that I had been reading, like Kaya.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I didn't talk about Kaya, but Kaya number 3 was very, very good. I very much enjoyed it. And you weren't here.
I did read it.
You weren't here when I talked about the first 2 episodes. I was here with Josue.
Mm-hmm.
I would very much like to fuck the lizard man.
I did catch that you wanted to fuck the lizard man.
I would very much like to fuck the lizard man. I don't know why. Maybe it's the emo haircut, but I would very much like to get down with the lizard man. Now back to Briar. You are completely right. Briar had a really great, strong start. It's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty where, Sleeping Beauty, Briar, whatever we're calling her, Princess Aurora, I don't fucking know, whatever you want to name her. Our little Disney princess has been asleep for 100 years and wakes up 100 years later, but she's this old and hardened woman. She's learned that she's been married against her will. She learns that she, has a now husband who is kind of evil and has kind of bought her kingdom to shit. So now she's out for revenge. I'm into that. I love that. Not only that, but she's being teamed up with a very lesbian feeling character, queer character, which, okay, I'm here for. Let's make Sleeping Beauty a little bit queer. Let's do that. But when you get to issue 2 and you start throwing in all this stuff and I don't understand what's happening, again, we've had a month-long gap. So at this point in the helm, unfortunately, Briar is going to be thrown onto the back burner for me, and I'm going to trade weight it.
I think so too. The artwork is beautiful. The story I really liked, but I do think that
the details get lost in that time is very important. Agreed. It might not be as important for, say, the big 2. We can have gaps in big 2 books. But for those indie books, it's very niche and very, very important that you hit those calendar marks, I guess.
In other, you mentioned kind of like a fantasy story, fantasy retelling that gets really queer. I'm going to tell y'all right now, you need to be watching Willow. It's on Disney Plus. It's amazing. There's 3 episodes out. Episodes come out on Wednesday. It is so good. It is so good. It is literally Kids Bop Game of Thrones. And it's so fucking good.
Kids Bop Game of Thrones.
That's it's literally like
it, but okay.
It's like Game of Thrones setup. It looks like they even use Game of Thrones like the previous sets that were used on Game of Thrones, but they PG it down. So it's like WAP, but kids
WAP. It's Wings and Pizza. Wings and pizza.
So Willow and something else, but you guys, it's so good. I love Willow. I've watched the 3 episodes that have come out. I've already watched 5 times. I love this show so much, and I need y'all to please watch it. Because I need like a million seasons of Willow.
A
Thank
million
you.
seasons.
Uh,
Another book that I picked up that, again, real quick, I'm gonna just gloss over, was The Ones from Dark Horse. This was the Brian Michael Bendis book, where a bunch of characters who supposedly are like the chosen ones of their destination, future,
Yeah.
whatever, have to come together to fight the Satan. Had a really rough start in the second issue, to the point where I was like, I'm just gonna drop this. But then there's a character that is my trope. He's your big buff standard stupid, like,
Himbo.
middle-aged himbo character. Think Drax the Destroyer from Guardians of the
Aw.
Galaxy with his dumb humor. And I'm like, am I really gonna continue reading this book for one character? So I might, depending on the load, the week that it comes out, I might give it one more issue. If not, it's a definite trade wait. It's not. In a year where Dark Horse has been putting out heavy hitters and has literally
Survival
been
Street.
the Dark Horse publisher, they put out Survival Street, they put out Minor Threats. The Ones, I feel like, is so, maybe if those two books didn't come out before it, it would feel like a stronger one.
I agree.
But it feels very average when it's following up to these two literal, I'm going to keep using it because it's my favorite pun, these two literal Dark Horses. Haha, he is the name of the publisher. Yay. I don't know. It's a joke that never gets old. It's great.
I agree. I think that if we didn't have books like Minor Threat, which is another like superhero ebook, and then Survival Street, which was just a fucking insane comic book that was just so incredible and so good. I think that if you're right, I'd probably like The Ones better, but having read all of those like superheroes, but they're really not the superheroes, or they're maybe morally gray people, or they're down on their luck, or whatever it may be. I feel like I've heard that story so many times at this point. I've got superhero fatigue, and I have they're superheroes, but they're different.
Yeah, I have superhero fatigue from my superhero fatigue, where the big two aren't the only options for superheroes.
Yeah. Yep. And if I think Black Hammer, which is also published by Dark Horse, just that one is if you're going to read they're superheroes but not super, or like, it's not read the Black Hammer universe for sure.
I agree.
There was
go ahead.
I was going to say there was another issue number 1 that came out. I know you were not very fond of it. I was also not very fond of it. And it just, I wanted it to be more.
Know Your Station is 100% the biggest disappointment of the week. Like, people,
not the biggest, but
I would say it's the biggest disappointment when we look at number 1s, because this is a book that I was really, really excited from its announcement. It had Liana Congas on art, so I'm like,
which is beautiful. Perfect. I love her artwork in this.
Her artwork is great. She does dynamic storytelling. She really is a rising artist in terms of this industry and what she's bringing to the punch, and the way that her art has kind of just evolved from like books like She Said Destroy to True Cult to now this. It's insane to see that growth live and in person. But this book was advertised as like a book against classism and the future and Eat the Rich, and it literally everything that was described was it was going to be like a perfect companion piece to Eat the Rich, which came out earlier last year,
but set in like on a space station,
but set in the future, set in space. So think WALL-E mixed with a little bit of Eat the Rich. I'm like, cool, I'm down for that. I love destroying capitalism. I love all that shit. And then I read the book and I'm like, where are all the rich people? Where's the capitalism? Where's the fighting back against the man? And it just kind of dumbed itself down to like your average, generic, boring ass crime noir set in space. And I'm like,
and
this isn't what I signed up for. It's very boring and very confusing.
And if we're really going to have a book that takes punches at classism, can we do it with someone other than someone who's like white presenting? I feel like this book was incredibly white, incredibly like, and maybe this,
there's two characters that look exactly like one another.
Mm-hmm. but one has dark hair and the other one has less dark hair, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. But I needed more out of this. I didn't get it. It might come in issue 2. Maybe trade weighted if you feel so inclined.
I definitely want to trade
It
weighted,
ends up
especially
being sorry.
especially with some of the other books that or not Behemoth, some of the other books that
Boom.
Boom has been putting out that are a lot stronger. It was not worth the excitement, the wait, the confusion. I just did not enjoy it, and I'm very confused at what a lot of people are seeing in this book. Like, this book has already gone to second printing, and it feels like it's been a long time since we've said that, because it feels like publishers are cutting back on the second printings, but this book is going to second printing. And it's just nuts. It's nuts.
It is. Well, in issue number 2 that came out from Boom this week that I was really excited for, but I felt like I was reading a completely different book than I had been reading in the first one, and that was Behold Behemoth. When the first issue of this came out, I'm like, I really don't know what's going on. There's some like time skips and jumps and going back and forth. But this one just felt like it could be a completely different book. Can you explain this one to me?
And I think that's kind of the point, because the way that the first issue went is, the first issue starts off as this like almost horror crime thriller type book where we have this detective who's exploring this case. He's got a tragic backstory. He keeps having these lapses in judgment where he'll black out. Things will happen. He doesn't know if what is happening during these blackouts he's the cause of, or if it's just a wrong place, wrong time.
And he's like on medication, so like, does it have something to do with like the medication that he's on or
medication
something?
He's dealing with these detectives. He finds this young girl who supposedly have powers, and then in the last like page or two of the first issue, we are dropped into this fantasy apocalypse world where these two characters are aged up. We've got this sort of father-daughter bond that's kind of given off. And I'm like, all right, this is it. This is my jam. I'm into this. You've got me in. Because I really was not enjoying the beginning of the book. So in this one, we're dropped fully into that fantasy universe, into this time jump, if you will, because it really does feel like there has been a time jump gap, even if it's not clearly explained. And I think that's kind of the point. We get to see more of the relationship between these two characters, which again, I love, because my favorite trope is found fathers and their found daughters and the relationship explored between them. Being that I am a found father-daughter duo myself, that's my jam, okay? I just love shit like that. It's my jam. I love it. But I feel like there's a lot of fantasy elements and a lot of world building in this issue that doesn't really make sense. It's kind of just thrown at you rather than
like I'm supposed to understand.
It's thrown at you rather than letting the world building happen organically. And there's powers where we're not explained the contingency of these powers, where they come from, what they can do. We just know that they're there and we know that they're a threat. And I will say it was a very messy second issue. But I don't know. Maybe this is a book that's just going to take a little longer to get through. I'm thinking
Maybe
give issue 3 a shot, see if maybe that kind of stabilizes it out there, because I'll be honest, I was not in love with that first issue until those last couple pages where I'm like, all right, son of a bitch, I'm in. You got me.
Yep.
So I'm going to give it at least one more chance and see where it goes. We'll see.
Agreed. The first issue to me felt like True Detective. And even though I know nothing of the game franchise, the second one reminded me of The Last of Us. And so it felt like a completely different series. Do you have a tie-in for this?
No, because that's exactly what I was thinking of. So thank you for bringing my thoughts out. But I didn't want to say anything because
I don't know anything about I don't know anything about Last of Us other than it's like a father-daughter relationship through the post-apocalyptic wasteland. That's really all I know.
Ruined my life and is going to ruin my life in January. Congratulations.
So Behold Behemoth, I will probably pick up issue 3, but we'll see how big or light that week is if I actually read it. There was one other book from Boom, at least one other book, no, 2. This issue number 2 came out. I know you did read this one, and that was The Approach number 2. You were not sold on issue 1. I really was. I really enjoyed it. And I also really enjoyed this issue too. We get to see, I don't know, more monsters and stuff. Just give me more monsters. You didn't like it though.
The approach has potential, but unfortunately it's blown the potential out the fucking airlock. So essentially it is your average monster zombie-esque book where you have a bunch of survivors stranded in a place that they can't escape from. In this particular sense, it's an airport during a snowstorm. And it's essentially the monster's gonna eat us, so let's fight against the monster.
And
Okay.
the monster comes at the end of issue 1. There's like a cliffhanger, or like it's not just, hey, we're trapped in this snowstorm. It's like, here's this plane crash that comes in, and the plane crash is from like 30 years ago.
First of all, we haven't done shit with the plane crash from 30 years ago. So at this point, the 30-year-old plane is irrelevant. Why was it even a plot point?
But that's like where the monster thing came from.
At this point, you're not going to know because they're not going to tell us where the monster came from. This book is the generic Night of the Living Dead. That's what this book is. It is a generic Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead story. The only difference between Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and The Approach is that the two former things that I just referenced have characters that are interesting. They have personalities that work against one another. They're dynamic, they're interesting, they're fun. And at that point in time, you're more invested in the characters and the way that they interact with the world, with you, with each other, than you are in the actual threat. Because at the end of the day, the threat is boring. We've seen this threat a million times. It just has a different coat of paint on it. And while the monster in this book is cool and it's freaky and it's weird, it doesn't do anything special other than, oh, it dragged a body into the vents. Okay, I saw that in Alien in 1978. Was I born in 1978 or whenever the fuck Aliens came out? No, but we've seen this story before. The only problem with The Approach is can you tell me one character's name?
No, there's airport security guy. And there's another firefighter lady.
And that's it. And that's all you can tell me.
I can tell you that there's... that's like every book. I can tell
you that there's a gay couple in this book. Couldn't tell you their names, but I know that there's a gay couple in this book. I need these characters to be more dynamic with one another. I need them to have interesting personalities.
I think they're going to die. They're all going to die.
But here's the thing, though, that you brought up a very good point. You're like, are they going to die? I don't care if they die because I'm not invested. The important part of this book is the survivability. As a reader, you want these characters to survive, but you need to give us a reason for these characters to survive. Because again, I could care if they live or die. I'm not worried about their morality. I'm not worried about their survival because I'm not attached to anybody. And listen, this is somebody who gets attached to characters knowing when she enters the movie that they're going to die. I'm looking at Rogue One.
I wasn't going to say that. I mean, you should probably know by now, but everyone dies at the end of Rogue One.
Everybody dies, but I was still attached and I was still invested in their safety. And I had this hope that maybe one of them would get out alive, even though they don't. I was hoping one would get out alive. I need that from this book and I'm not getting it.
I still really like this book. I'm probably going to pick up issue 3. I think the reason why the monster feels generic, like all of those franchises that you mentioned, is because Jeremy Hahn even said that this is like one of his love letters to 80s horror. So I think that's the reason why. I see your point, though. Like, maybe should it be a little bit less generic? Certainly. Why not? But I really like The Approach. I think it's a fun horror book for the whole family.
I disagree, but okay.
I'm going to read issue 3 and describe it to you in painstaking detail.
Oh, great. So, since we're on the topic of Boom, there's 2 other Boom books.
I only have one.
Stuff of Nightmares #3. This is the R.L. Stine book. It continues to be really, really solid. This one really does take that like Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein inspiration that I really, really like. And I'm actually kind of upset because I finally started getting invested in this book to be told that next issue is the final issue. And I'm like, nobody told me that this was only 4 issues. And now I'm upset because I felt like it's finally hitting a pace that we need it to get to. And now it's going to end. So I'm interested to see how he ends it. And then the only other book that I have is Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. Number 1. Boom? This one is Boom, done by Jason Aaron. Right. I was really excited for this book to come out. Listen, post-apocalypse, that's my jam. You throw a little bit of romance in it, that's my jam. This book was kind of average for me. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I read it 3 weeks ago and I don't remember it all too fondly. So I feel like that's not really a good thing.
It's probably
But
not a good sign.
I will read issue 2 because I do remember that there is a cliffhanger, and I won't spoil it for those of you that would like to read it. But there is a cliffhanger that honestly is really interesting and really smart and kind of makes me want to read the rest of it.
I know I picked that one up.
It was forever ago.
Don't know if I read it. Yeah. It's sitting here pretty in the stack, and I didn't read it.
It was forever ago. It was okay.
We'll see.
But maybe I only have 3 other books after that. So what do you have?
Let me see here. I know you didn't get this one, so I'm going to talk about it. And that's Heart Eyes number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I still really like this book, and I feel like the main character was her name Lube. I think that because she has these powers, she's now being seen as like a villain. So I really, really like that this aspect. It goes a little bit more into her character. What I'm realizing, the thing that I don't like about the way that they portray her character is that I feel like they portray her really, really young when she's probably, the way that this book ages, like you see her story, I feel like she should be in her late 20s to early 30s, but instead they're painting her as like an 18-year-old, which is a little bit weird. So that's like my only discrepancy with this book. Normally in other books I just wouldn't like that, but I like this story enough that I do enjoy this. And I think anyways, I really like it. There's one more issue. Issue 5 comes out next month. Okay. What else?
We saw the ending of a series this week, or last week rather. It was Dark Spaces Wildfire number 5. Now this is the first in a massive wave that we've seen from IDW where they're doing creator-owned books rather than doing licensed properties. Even more surprising is this one is done by Scott Snyder and Haywood Sherman, or Sherwood Haywood? Haywood Sherman?
Herman
Sherman Blobber? My brain's starting to turn off. Yeah. It's about 10 o'clock here. My brain's starting to go into shutdown mode and reboot mode.
Hayden Sherman.
Hayden Sherman. That sounds right. Sorry, Hayden. We love you. Your books are grand. Yeah. But this book, I'm mad about it because it was really, really good. And I don't want to say that because I know John's Comics with Kids will be listening at some point, and we are both in the, I guess he's more in the I hate Scott Snyder fan club. I'm more in the I think he's overrated fan club. I still don't feel like this was him. I feel like this was a ghostwriter on the book. Yeah. It just does not feel like anything he's ever done, but this is probably up there in terms of one of my favorite books this year. And partially because of that is just because of how surprised I am at how good I was. Because A, Scott Snyder, B, it's IDW and this new thing that they're trying. And I feel like if they can continue to put books out like this, then they could literally compete with publishers like Boom and Volt and even Image.
Agreed. I really liked the first issue. I think I didn't catch the third issue or the second issue, so I'm gonna have to trade weight it. But
it was very good.
Is this gonna make one of your books of the year, do you think?
It's possible. It very well could be. There was a lot of good indies this year, so we'll have to see.
I have, let me see here, a couple more books.
2 books left.
One of the books, did you get Dahlia in the Dark by Mad Cave?
I did. So I actually got a preview copy of it. Is this it? Yeah, maybe. I got a little preview copy of it.
Oh.
A little poster. This one was different. So this is Joe Carrillo. I'm bad with names. Again, brain's going into shutdown mode. Joe also did She Said Destroy. Second time we're mentioning that book tonight, and I'm going to be honest, I was not a huge fan of She Said Destroy. But this was a lot stronger. I still don't think this is hard for me to compare books because Dahlia in the Dark, while it is the newest title from Mad Cave, it is following up against Nature's Labyrinth, which is probably one of my favorite Mad Cave titles of all time, with only
Yeah.
an issue 1 under its belt. So I feel like it's rough because it's following such a strong and heavy hitter. But I feel like this one is interesting because it's kind of that like supernatural meets Mad Max sort of book where I feel like if that's in your niche vibe, you'll really, really enjoy this book.
Sorry.
I just don't know if I was one of those people.
I definitely wasn't. The artwork is really cool. I can like feel the characters in it, but I felt a little bit bored by this book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but maybe it's the artwork reminded me a little bit of Seven Secrets.
Okay.
Anyways, I just didn't love this book. I don't know if I'll be picking up the next one. We will see. It wasn't horrible though.
I've definitely read less interesting things from Mad Cave. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. One of the other books. What other books do you have?
I only have one more.
Is it this one?
It is that one.
I really liked this book. This book gave me Four Kids Walk into a Bank vibes. And it's done by Kurt Pyers,
who did one of my favorite books, Olympia from Image Comics. Please read it.
Please read Olympia. But this book, there's so much of what happens in like the conversation between the characters, and I can't tell you the characters' names, but I can tell you that I'm invested in whatever they are going through.
And this is It's Only a Teenage Wasteland from Dark Horse, which, again, I'm just consistently surprised this year the content that Dark Horse is putting out. It's kind of insane that it feels like they're starting to finally lean fully into giving these creators indie power and publishing power, because I've always seen Dark Horse as the video game licensing company.
Okay.
You know, they're the ones that publish the Mass Effect and the Dragon Age books. They've done they had Black Hammer under the belt, but they've had Hellboy, and it's like they've never really stuck out to me in terms of a publisher with tangible stories that I feel like I can recommend unless you fit into that niche wheelhouse. But again, with books that we've mentioned already, Minor Threats,
Survival Street,
and now Teenage Wasteland, which is insane that this is probably one of the strongest first issues we've seen all year. And it's a shame it's just coming out in December, because this could have easily been on a best of 2022.
See, that's where I would almost count this as I'm going to finish this book and consider it for 2023.
It's good, and it's definitely got a cliffhanger opening, it's got a cliffhanger ending, and the storytelling I feel like is just so kinetic, not only in the way that it's presented visually, but in terms of the way that the characters interact with each other, because it feels like relationships that we've had potentially with our own friends during that time period and in high school. And it tells you that every man's story without being boring. It does it in an engaging and interesting way with humor and, black comedy, for lack of a better word, for some instances, which is one of my favorite things in storytelling and in comics. So I'm really excited for it.
I agree. And I could also see the way that it uses the main character as a narrator and like a little bit narrating what's going on. Like he'll break the fourth wall, but not in a way that makes it feel like it's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I could easily see this being a Netflix show, like a
100%.
Teen Netflix show. I will say one of my only points of contention, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. A person of color dies. And that's
I don't think we know that yet.
It looks like, I think that's.
I will say that did bother me, that it felt like the person of color was the victim. I will say that, but I don't necessarily know if they're gone because, and again, I don't want to spoil anything because this is definitely one of those books where it's you got to read it for yourself sort of mystery type book. Very similar. A lot of people are comparing it to books like Nice House on the Lake, which I wouldn't necessarily agree with. I think
Kids Bop version of Nice House on the Lake.
Maybe. I think your comparison to Four Kids Walk into a Bank is way more astute in terms of comparisons.
And the
Um,
characters, the characters
the
where they are in
characters, the
their
way
like
that they
lives.
interact, everything like that feels more like that. So, again, while I do agree that it feels weird that it's the person of color that's the victim, I don't think that they're necessarily down for the count just yet. I feel like there's going to be a lot more for us to explore with this.
I think so too. I think that there will be some surprises, definitely. Well, I've got one book left on my list. This one was probably my favorite, which really fucking surprises me. I'm going to preface this with I really don't ever buy books by Dynamite, just because I feel like a lot of it isn't geared towards me. But I bought the Gargoyles book a little bit for nostalgia, for if for any other reason. And this surprises me that it was Dynamite, because this could literally be like 10 plus. Like, you could be 10 years old reading a Dynamite book. If you want to get your kids, like if you're an older millennial and you want to maybe get like a young kid into like something that you felt nostalgia for, I would 100% say go for this Gargoyles book. I really enjoyed it. I think the age group that it was meant for is much younger. They will really, really enjoy it.
I love Gargoyles, and I'm sad that I missed out on that one. But me and Dynamite, we're at odds right now, so I don't know if I'm ready to forgive them yet.
I've bought Dynamite before, especially if it's a creator that I care for a lot and like enjoy their work, because sometimes the stories on the inside are so much better than the 1,000 just I don't want to call it tasteless, because sometimes I do like that taste.
Hey, listen, I used to be that dumb bitch that would buy 5 different Red Sonja covers a month, okay? Ending my relationship with Dynamite was probably one of the best things I ever did for my wallet. So thank you, Dynamite.
I get that. So anyways, sometimes the stories are better than just the variant covers let on. But Gargoyles was actually a lot of fun. It was easy to read. It gives you a backstory to the characters and what's going on, so you don't feel like you have to go and watch Gargoyles or anything before reading this. So I really liked it. Surprised me a lot.
And these are always the best books when they come with a surprise.
Yeah,
like a Wonder Ball surprise inside.
Well, that's pretty much all the books that I read.
All the books that I read.
I know you and I discussed, since there's been some scheduling issues, there's been a lot going on. Just an update for the show. It looks like we're probably going to plan a pinch of a hiatus. Like we're going to go on a holiday break,
hiatus. We need a break. So we've been working hard. Recently, we didn't talk about it at the beginning, so I figured it'd be a good thing to talk about at the end. We just hit our 2-year anniversary, which is fucking nuts to think that the way that the show has evolved, the amount of people that we've brought in, the fact that people now recognize us at like conventions and at comic shops and will like stop us and be like, "You're that person. You do Casually Comics. I've heard you talk about monster fucking on the internet." And I'm like,
if I can be I think it's time for me to make a professional comic journalist resume, and that's going to be it.
That's going to be it.
Monster fucker comic reviewer.
Perfect. Love
comic
it.
Reviewer
Monster fucker analyst.
Yeah.
I think analyst is more professional.
Analyst.
But like it's insane just to think how far that we've come in such a short amount of time, because like I've seen shows that are bigger than us, but they've been doing it for like 6-7 years, and I'm like, we've been doing it for 2 and we're like a quarter, maybe a half of the way to your, where I would like to be with that. We're both incredibly thankful for everybody that has supported us through merch, through Patreons, through just your love, your gifts, your whatever. It's nuts. But that being said, we've been doing this for 2 years, and I feel like 2022 burn us out because we were reading every single comic imaginable. We were trying to shift schedules. We've both gone through various life things,
work changes,
schedule things, everything. And we've been trying our best to accommodate in every way that we can, whether it be moving our schedule or doubling up and tripling up. And I think we're both starting to realize that it does in fact take a toll on the human body and mind, even
Does.
if we don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
So
Even though this is like my fun time,
this is
like
my fun time.
I don't necessarily think of spending hours reading comics, reading about comics, talking about comics as a job, um, because it's fun. When you pair that with a 40+ hour a week job and all the things that come with it.
It can be a little rough.
Yeah.
So we've decided to take a little bit of a break. This will officially, not sadly, because we all deserve rest and kindness and
Yeah.
care, but this will officially be our final episode of 2022. We will be back bigger, stronger, better, more violent than ever in 2023. We're definitely planning on coming back with our top books of 2022 list. We're planning on bringing back more creator just conversations and
Yeah.
hanging out with pros, possibly getting more guests onto the show, more hangouts with host Sway if they're still in the chat.
Please.
Just bigger, better, stronger, but at the same time still loving and caring about ourselves, and realizing that we too deserve rest and to enjoy the holidays and things like that.
So excited to come back, and like you said, with all the things, it's like we have all these ideas, and I think that when we go each week, just week by week by week, it's really tough to plan and do all those things. So I can't wait to take a little bit of a rest, still work behind the scenes on all those things that you just mentioned.
100%.
And in 2023, bring more creators on, because we've been talking to creators about coming onto the show, and it's almost like we just need to like figure it out and get it done. So I think this break is going to get us to figure it out and get it done, because we got some cool stuff lined up.
We do. We have some crazy stuff lined up. That being said, we are still always reachable. Our socials are listed down below for both our Twitters and our Instagrams. You can
send me smoke signals or carrier pigeon.
You can send smoke signals or a carrier pigeon for Jen. I don't know if I'll respond to that, but Jen apparently will respond to those sort of signals. But you can always reach out to us on social media, keep up with what we're doing. I'm sure that we're both still going to be posting about comics that we love as they come out. Yeah. But it's time for a much needed break. I think after 2 years we deserve a break.
Yeah. That's like a planned break, because usually it's me messaging you on Saturday and I'm like, yo, I'm not feeling good. You cool if we skip the show this week? Is that okay?
I'm dying today, but we can do it. No, you shouldn't. We should definitely stop. So yeah. It'll be nice for us to just rest and come back fully charged for 2023, where I can finally fight Brian Azzarello in a Denny's parking lot.
I'm going to totally invite Brian Azzarello on the show.
Jesus Christ, that'll be the day that I quit forever.
Could you imagine that? If we did that, if we actually like put our money where our mouth is and like got a hold of these creators, and then, I don't know.
Number 1, how dare you?
How dare you?
Number 2, how dare you? No.
So find us on the internets. You can find me on Instagram.
You can definitely find us on the internet. But this has been a blast. We want to thank all of you for joining us tonight for one final send off for the year. But the Casually Comics duo will be back. We're planning to be back sometime in the middle, if not late, January of 2023. So we're super excited. And if you ever have any suggestions for us, if you think that we could be doing something even more fun that our goldfish brains can't think of, please reach out to us. I still want to do a drunk comic book show at some point. One day.
You don't do all the shows drunk? I'm just kidding.
Only the nighttime one.
We usually do it on like Sunday. So if we do a drunk show, it's got to be like special occasion.
It's got to be a special occasion. Whatever happened to our holiday drink-a-thons? We got to bring those back.
My liver can't take it anymore. No. I'm an oldie. Well, friends, it's been delightful. Like I said, we love you. We can't wait to see you next year. Don't ever hesitate to reach out, and I hope you all have a great night.
Bye.